Okay. So we're trying, for those of you who have been paying attention to the journey of the land of and technical everything, I'm trying stream solo tonight, so that I'm not entirely dependent on a ton of back end producers to do some things, which means that I'm going to be playing with some buttons along the way. Yeah, we went this one.
Impressive growth, friend. That's impressive growth.
You have no idea.
I'm here for that. I'm so here
Like,
for that.
I almost want Jay to come back in to be like, "It's okay, Jenna. It's okay." It's been it's been really rough because one of the things that I love about Twitch is I love the organic community of which it's just there's no better ecosystem for Denise Hamilton, whom I will introduce
Mm.
momentarily.
Okay.
But, but it has been really, really hard to get on Twitch. It requires, a little bit more patience. There's the, like and then obviously we wanna create all this content and then get it out to the world, and the things that we're hoping to discuss and do here at the Land of Hand is, 180 degrees from what happens everywhere else in the world, which is
Mhm.
the soundbite slinging, finger wagging, can't hold the nuance, can't hold the grace of our humanity thing. The challenge, of course, which Denise does, is a much more varsity player than I am when it comes to like threading the needles and doing all those things. So we're gonna chit chat about the headlines,
Okay.
um, specifically around one that is like hovering over my heart
Mm.
in ways that I can't quite wrap my head around, and I have some theories around it, and Denise, and I spent a lot of time just calling each other and being each other's societal therapists, and, why not make that okay, Denise Hamilton, she is the author of shit, help D,
Indivisible.
Indivisible, because she holds a vessel of ideas around how we can find ourselves and each other in these moments. She has been a guardian angel of mine. She is a speaker, a pontificator on headlines and the state of the world. And I am so grateful that we are alive at the same time. And she was generous enough to like raise her hand and really provide some air cover for me in a moment that I'm still too early to process. So this is Denise, author extraordinaire, movement creator extraordinaire. Master Liberty, do we want to talk at the big, beautiful bill? And if Trump doesn't even like it, which I entirely agree with you, I don't actually think he agrees with most of the things he puts out, nor do I think he gets it. I think he just says things that are reactionary,
Yeah.
but the consequence is far too significant.
They're far too significant. You know, I think first of all, why is it so big?
And why do we use the adjective beautiful?
I don't know.
Does
Why
it
do
make
we
it look
talk like school
feminine?
children about like really important grown folks business? I don't know. Um, yeah, I think like wait, what's because that's how politics works. You get what you can get across the finish line. Oh. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's right. I don't know that I disagree with that take. I think that this idea of thoughtless policy is very painfully on my heart right now as we are still looking for bodies in the flood that happened in Texas, 4th of July. I think that this idea of um, careless leadership, I speedy and careless leadership, not thinking about the long haul, not having a connection to the multidimensionality of your decisions. So you say, for example, something so simple, like, capping student loan access for doctors and lawyers. Basically, you've just declared that only rich people will be able to be doctors and lawyers, right? And what's the thing about that? Rich people don't wanna go to Appalachia and provide medical care. right? You need people from every strata of culture to be doctors, because everybody can't be a plastic surgeon and a dermatologist.
Or an
You
anesthesiologist.
create if you create this, like, caste system of access to certain industries, you literally damn your country. And so 15 years from now, we'll be sitting around saying, "Why are there no doctors? Why can't we get any doctors to go to these different communities? Why are we so underserved? What are we doing?" And we'll talk about it like it was just unavoidable. And it's never unavoidable. We make policy choices, and those policy choices create realities, right? And then if we're so politically hamstrung that we don't have the integrity to say, "You know what? Oops, we made a mistake. We need to reevaluate this. We need to reconsider this." Then we're stuck with crappy policy decisions for years to come. And we all are damaged by that.
I just am at the I keep thinking about, policy, like, I think about Botox. It's just the analogy of where I am right now.
I'm
Like,
fearful. I'm too fearful to do Botox, let's be honest.
okay, Denise, who is I'm gonna say something that's gonna sound offensive. Denise is, like, 309 years old, and she's never done Botox.
I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire.
And
I have no
that's what she looks
explanation.
like. That's what she looks like. That's her forehead. This is, 5 weeks out of Botox. Nostril. See how it doesn't move?
Yes, but what about your personality, though? We need to see your personality.
Like, Botox is gonna be a bottleneck for this.
This is true. This is true. You're right about that. You're right about that.
We had Master Liberty on, he's a frequent participant, and we had him on, when we were talking about a startup around breastfeeding. It doesn't matter the nuances of what the company was, and
Mhm.
he was like, "I didn't think I was gonna be talking about breastfeeding," and now Master Liberty, the obvious transition from His Highness, the President of the United States of America, the protector of the rights of the same, to Botox. Let's bring it back to what matters. That's the dumbest name I've ever heard.
Oh,
I think
man.
it's just gonna happen. I really believe this, like, it's just everything's gonna get flattened. Okay, so Master Liberty, you don't know this, Denise does.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready for this, and I'm actually in couples therapy, Master Liberty. I'm in couples therapy, until 5:30, and I get the blaring, like, the honking noise from the phone, and I look at it, it's like, "There's a tornado in your area, please seek shelter." I've never received a national weather alert that has said, "Do something." I've
Really?
warnings, but
Okay.
not wait, sorry. Whatever it was, Jeremy, my husband, was like, "This isn't a FYI, this is a you must move t and shelter in
Call to
place."
action, an
It's literally
immediate
a call to
demand of a
action.
commitment.
It wasn't
Yes.
like, "Heads up, there's flooding." It's like, "Flooding is coming. There is a
Right.
tornado coming." And Jay is kind enough, she just sent me a screenshot. She's like, "Are you sure you're not in this area? Because if you should go back down in the basement." Um, and I found myself just casually being like, "Oh, look, the national weather alert worked. We
Yeah.
g" and I'm like, "Should we wait?" And then my therapist was our therapist was like, "Maybe you should just go down in the basement. Like,
Yeah.
let's end this and just go in the basement.
Be cooperative.
Be cooperative." I'm like, "You're right. I'm gonna go through the motions here because I'm one of those folks that I'm not like a waited outer. I don't sit if someone says it's time to go, like, we'll go. I'm happy to participate because I feel like there's so much weight just put on first responders, and I don't need to be that person."
Mhm.
And so I get my kids, we get down in the basement, they're all excited. This feels dramatic, and the alerts keep coming in. And my dad is upstairs pulling the outdoor furniture in and closing the umbrellas and like moved a car into the garage. I'm like, "Dad, roll, like it says, get down in the basement." And these alarms are going off as you can't hear it, but like
Mhm.
it's really rumbling. Um, it's like really, they're very like triggering. They're very like, "Don't move, don't move, don't move." And I couldn't help but analyze, is someone just, like, super trigger friendly right now because of what happened in Texas? And just like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. Everyone just pull over to the side of the road. Everyone just get in the basement. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go." But then I also watched myself who wants to be like a participatory citizen, and I'm also a mother, and I have to, like, keep 2 people alive too. Like, I was like, "Dee, dee, 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 dee. Should I run to the bathroom before I go down in the basement? Should I grab my computer?"
Mm,
And my dad, who's like Captain Careful, is like moving the bikes into the garage. And, like, I think that's what I mean by, like, policy and best practices. There's just like Botox. Like,
yeah.
it's all superficial. It's all about, like, how we're gonna behave and how we're
Yeah.
gonna take care of each other because, like, the policy or the title, His Highness or whatever it might be, just gets squashed. It doesn't actually mean anything in the end. It's about, like, and so my dad wouldn't get in the base, and I screamed up to him, and I was role modeling this in front of my kids, and this might be, like, a terrible thing. I screamed up, "Dad, we're not coming upstairs to get you and to save you. Once we dig ourselves out, we'll come find you, and if we can help you, we will."
Mm,
Because there was this sense, and my dad is my everything, but there was this sense of, like, we are in a shelter in place state for the next 4 to 40 years. And we have to look out for each other. And, like, we have to, like, I kept saying to the kids, like, self-help is the best help. If you can't listen to the warning and get yourself into a safe place, you shouldn't be putting somebody else in danger at the same time.
yeah.
And so it was like there was, like, so much policy, like, they were hitting the alarm button around here, and yet no alarms landed in Care County. How's everyone feeling in Texas, Denise?
Terrible, terrible, terrible. It's like the more you learn about it, the worse it is. The further back you go, um, the more, people unearth the city council meetings and the times that the Texas legislature denied alarm systems and the time that they said, "Oh, that's gonna be too much money to put in the different, tools and resources that would have been really helpful in this situation." Like, the more you learn about it, just the more angry, the more furious everyone is. I mean, it's a posture, right? It's a posture. How do we think about our relationship to one another? What is the purpose of government? And it's really infuriating to think of people looking at thinking about government and looking at government only as a tool to benefit themselves personally. So, of course, I don't wanna, pay $1,000,000 to install this. "Oh, that's too expensive. I can't do that. I want lower taxes." Well, lower taxes aren't free. It's like all money ain't good money, right? So you have this area that is a not a poor area. It's a pretty wealthy area. Um, Making financial choices, and then the state overall making financial choices. And these babies are gone. These babies are gone. And so does it, like, there's this amazing hindsight that everyone has now of all the different choices that could have been made. When you think about the personnel and the thing about people, right? Like, I know we're all obsessed with AI and we think technology can do everything. But when you take systems that have been in place for decades and you just push the people out, you don't even know what Matt used to do. You don't even know what Lauren did. You really don't, because they've been working together for so many years, and they have all the relationships, and they have everybody's cell phone number, and like it's just such an interconnected web. And when you come at it with a literal chainsaw, my mind keeps going to Elon on the stage with that chainsaw. When you come at it with a chainsaw, and then you have, like, fractured systems that are incomplete and unclear, and you lose kind of like that chain and that sequencing. And then you can say this couldn't have been avoided, and we're all like, of course it could have been of course it could have been avoided." You didn't
Well,
care?
and that's what I'm, uh, I'm really nervous that this turns into a and I actually saw a statement, it wasn't by Cruz, it was by the lieutenant governor, whose name I
Yes, Dan Patrick, yeah.
and he said this was in the will of God.
Mhm.
And I am so afraid that this is gonna turn into a thoughts and prayers, like, this is force majeure when, um yeah, like, in a way, it's almost like, "Okay, I'll take the fact that you thought it was gonna be 6 to 9 inches, not 15 to 17 inches," but there was a fail-safe in place for having that calculation incorrect. And then there was also they didn't send the weather balloon up because that office was cut. And I remember, Denise, you and I were talking about Doge a couple months ago, and you were like, "Find me" and again, my analogy went to something simple, like, "Find me a kitchen with a Tupperware drawer that doesn't need reorganization." But it's like,
Right.
"Find me an office, find me a law office, find me an elementary school, find me in any that is, like, perfectly operating." And Master Liberty, I feel like I'm picking up what you're putting down, that sometimes there's unnecessary expenses made. Like, I'll never forget, I lived in Miami, Florida when the Miami International Airport was being rebuilt, and it took years. And I remember that someone said it will keep like 5 law firms in business for the next 40 years to prosecute all of the corruption that went into building that airport. It was so, below bar. And yet I still know that the airport, like, runway was, like, the length it needed to be. You know, like, that it was still, like, this is what humans do when
Yeah.
greed
Yes.
becomes acceptable when we measure ourselves based on our penis size and how much money we have in our wallets. And for me, I'll never forget when Denise said to me 3, 4 years ago during the ice storm in Texas, like, well, this is what happens when you don't wanna pay taxes. You don't the grid breaks. This is what happens when you don't wanna pay taxes. You don't have alarms when there's sleeping babies on the
Mm,
sides of rivers.
right. And then you can say, "This was an act of God." No, it was an act of will or the lack thereof, like, the bottom line is people are expensive to take care of. And I really resist the frame that, the private sector the government needs to run like the private sector. Does
Yeah.
it? Because, is it DeepSeek that just did for $6 million what it took OpenAI billions of dollars to do? Like, we act like corporate I've seen people, like, throw away a ream of paper because it was bone instead of ecru. So I've seen tons of waste in the private sector. Exactly, Jay Nice. The government is not a business. It isn't efficient to have a lifeguard. A lifeguard can sit on that guard chair, the stand, all summer long and never even have to get in the water and save one person. But my God, if your baby is at the bottom of the pool, you sure are glad that lifeguard is there. And so this idea that every function has to be massively productive or it's wasteful is such a broken mentality. We need lifeguards sometimes. We need somebody whose job it is to sit and listen to the weather alert and amplify it when the cell towers go down, right? And who knows how to get in touch with people and who has to get in a car to go to the camp and get there. Like, that's the thing that happened in the past that didn't happen this time because these systems were unceremoniously clipped and gutted. And I'm all about efficiency. This wasn't efficient. This was a chainsaw. This was unilateral decisions made on a whim without thought or care because of a disrespect of people and the work that they do. Because if they're not like you, they must not be significant, important, necessary, whatever. And it was disrespectful. It was unkind. All of a sudden, the reason the American government doesn't work is because of Sally the park ranger. She's gotta go. It was disrespectful, right? These systems are interwoven and interconnected, and people actually matter. And we saw this in this situation. And now Dan Patrick just announced that they're gonna pay the $1 million for the alert system now. I, that's even worse. That's even
It
worse.
really is, isn't it?
When you got the
It really is.
report, the information, you saw the study, you saw you had all the information in your hand.
They did 2 studies. They did
They
2
did
studies. One cost 50, one cost $73,000.
yeah,
They did 2 studies. And Master Liberty, I have to push back on you. I understand that the states are run like their own businesses.
yeah,
It is a union of it is a conglomeration of joint ventures.
yes,
The reason why states have not just their sovereignty and independence is because we don't have avalanche systems in the state of Pennsylvania, and we don't need that line item like they do in Wyoming. And they don't need, I don't know, flooding in the same way that we do here.
right.
But there is like this is the I'm not gonna be able to thread this needle that well, but I'm gonna try. This is what I think is missing. And it's sort of in your response a bit that it is not my problem when the whole ethos of the United States, particularly in the early 1900s, has been a brand and an ideal built around a shared moral compass that I am my brother's keeper too. And that like it is both on my shoulders to remind my father multiple times to get his tush into the basement. And then it is also okay for me to tell him I'm not coming upstairs to get you, but I will dig you out. Like both of those things can happen at the same time. I don't think Americans I don't think the American story that we promised people that you should be able to have access to the first parking spot at Home Depot, and that your pediatrician should be able to catch everything, and that your elementary school teacher who has 30 kids in the classroom should be able to teach everyone how to read at the same level, even though everyone has different processing skills. I think that myth that we sold people has built this like conundrum of entitlement that like it is your problem, not mine.
Yeah.
I don't
Until it's your problem, and
People
then everyone must stop because this is can you believe what happened to me? This was so terrible, and it's like, yes, you need to be empathetic when it's happening to someone else. You need to see your interconnectedness, and when you choose not to, it always comes back on you. Always. It's always harmful, right? And so one of the worst things about this whole, catastrophe is people saying things like, well, they got what they voted for. They got what they voted for, which, first of all, I think 90% of those comments are bots. I don't really think that people really feel that way, or it's coming across in the way that people really feel it. But people do feel like it is important for us to be able to identify when we're crashing our cars into a wall. Like, you have to have a space to be able to say, "We have to stop doing this. We have to stop conducting ourselves in this way." You want a compassion. You want your kids to be safe. You want everybody to get home okay. You want these things. These are universal things that we all want. So, they want it over there too. So, we have to grow in our ability to see how we interconnect. I know that I live in a because I live in Texas, I live in a richer state, right? California is a richer state. New York is a rush. There, we have some states that make a lot more money than the other states. Listen, if Louisiana or Mississippi or Alabama has a storm, has a hurricane, has a whatever, whatever, send them my money. Help them because I know the day is going to come that I'm going to need that help. Right. And the rich states do this all the time, right? In terms of putting in more than we even get back in terms of taxes. That's definitely true for California and New York. And so I think this idea of like creating a battleground between, instead of seeing us as connected and valuable. I think that's it. It's like people are valuable. And just because it's not you that's experiencing the hardship shouldn't mean that you're not interested or you don't care. And that's what I'm seeing in the kind of swirl here is people are tired of people that don't care about them, but when something happens to them, they want all hands on deck. And there's a great Bible verse that says, if you want to have friends, present yourself friendly. And I always like I write that down, or I don't, because it's like you don't get friends unless you are a friend. And that interconnectedness, that interwoven situation is something we have to like find our way back to, because this thing that we're doing is disastrous. Oh, lots of reading.
Mhm, mhm. I think this is why I feel like policy is like Botox, where I just folks have been led to believe that, like, being human and existing adjacent to each other is like a trade. Like, it's like, I'll give you one squash if you give me one piece of corn. And like, it always has to be some like currency exchange. In fact, I talk about this a lot in my therapy, where there's this like, what am I getting out of it? The tit for tatting, the like, the trading versus the just being present for the person and the bearing witness to the things that are needed.
Yeah.
And I do think the crisis that we're in is a crisis of the heart and the crisis that we're headed to from what's going to happen on like the store shelves is going to require us to break the systems of like the horse trade.
Yeah.
I'll give this to you if you give this to me. And
Mm,
it's going to get so, so, so bad that our survival is ultimately entirely dependent on somebody else's survival because we don't understand that concept.
mm,
And we're
mm,
just like, well, what's the policy?
mm. When you listen to people talk, you would think they have chickens in the backyard and they've got hogs and they raise corn and they have an oil well and you need something from so many other people for your life. You are not some kind of superhero that has created your life on your own terms. There are a million people that contribute to the life that you have. And part of being in this country, to being a part of this country, is understanding that. And that feels very basic to me. I remember I was brought in as a consultant for a city, shall not be named, who was having some budget challenges. And they one of the ideas that was presented was, we're going to reduce the cleaning of the courthouse.
The cleaning,
The cleaning of the courthouse.
like the
Like
vacuuming, the picking
the
up, the
vacuuming, wiping down the handrails, the cleaning of the bathrooms, the da da da. And I literally stood up in their city council. I'm like, are y'all insane? Because Legionnaire's disease, tuberculosis, like you can have one person that has something and you have this place that everybody in the city comes to. And now you have outbreaks all over the city. No, there is no amount of money that is worth that. There's no amount of money that's worth that. And I understand money is not infinite. I understand that we have to make hard decisions, in making budgetary choices. But safety for me is a non-starter. I just feel like the regret, the pain, the damage, the harm that we're seeing people experience right now. If they could pay $10 million, $20 million, they would happily write that check. But it won't matter. Over 100 people are dead and over 100 are still missing, right? Like it doesn't, there's no amount of money. And so we are going to look back with regret and hindsight and say, oh, yeah, we shoulda, coulda, woulda. But we have to get better, I think, at making the choices when the information is given to us. Yeah.
but one of the other things I wanted to explore with you is this, like, the myth of invincibility. Like,
Mhm.
when I got the alarms an hour and a half ago, I was like, "Well, it's me, but, like, it's not fair." And same thing with dad. Dad's like, I got 3 more minutes. This isn't a thing. Like this idea of, and like the irony is that we see like the vulgar truth of how sensitive and how delicate human life is every single day. The algorithm scrolls something for me that's pretty horrific. Certainly, it has been like very, very horrific over the past couple of years, decade. And yet I still believe there's a level of invincibility. Now, I don't know from an anthropological perspective if that's just like, my frontal lobe saying, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, so that you don't actually not get in the car and drive to school, and that you don't actually not turn on the stove to start dinner because of all the 10 million things that could go wrong. But I think it's part of the American myth.
Yeah. It's always fun to talk to recent immigrants because this is one of the things that always comes up. The way that American people move like nothing can go wrong.
Yeah.
And when you come from a place where things go wrong all the time, it's like almost jarring to interact with people who think, "Yeah, I'm gonna parasail. What could go wrong? I mean, I'm gonna drive drunk. Who cares? I mean, I'm fine." You know, and like we have all of these practices that are kind of like, "It'll be okay," right? And that's that's a function of having a certain level of privilege and where we live and how we live and it shows up in these places where these decisions are made, right? It's the money is immediate, the tax break is immediate, right? But it may take 10 years before and also not even time, like this is invisible work, right? Nobody sees
Yeah.
the crisis that was
Which is
averted.
why it's so easy to take the chainsaw to it and feel it's like,
Yeah.
I
You
got
don't
it.
see it. Nobody was gonna notice if that courtroom wasn't clean. Maybe you'll get a couple complaints of people that but they're not gonna nobody even notices these things, right? And I think that is that's the struggle of policy, right? It's not sexy. It's not entertaining. It just isn't. And so when you come along and you bring your boring stats and you bring your boring facts, right? Um, it's very hard to kind of make like the grown-up choice. It's easier to do the stuff that feeds that reelection campaign because the stuff that the actual work of government really isn't sexy at all.
Mm-mm.
And it's hard to tell the story of the little person that sat in the office that listened for the weather alarms and escalated it to the property owners. Like,
Right.
that's not
And
sexy, not fun,
that's right.
Everybody wants to interview that person now, though. They all trying to track those people down and interview them because now you've had a tragedy. Like, it doesn't matter until it matters. And that's a messaging challenge for anybody who's developing good policy.
So, on this, and this might be a little bit esoteric, but for context, my background is in foreign policy. I worked at the United Nations for a long time, and I spent the earlier years while I was at the UN, like really fixated on human rights and like what is a human right. And there's the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. There's the Convention on the Rights of the Child. There's all these like theories of like, and you can't arm a child can't be involved in militia or war until they're 18 years old. Sort of an arbitrary, but also not arbitrary sort of age. Or it is on the sovereign state or nation to protect the safety of women and girls, meaning like no early arranged marriages they, and I always sort of looked at those basic human rights and wondered like, well, who says the state owes that to anybody? Because one, as you said, is expensive and it's like time consuming. Like the lifeguard all summer long sits there
Yeah,
for hours and
it's hot,
hours and
hot.
hours, and they're not well hydrated and they might miss something. I mean, I'm not a religious person, and I am thanking your God tonight because my little baby cousin had an incident at the pool last
Mhm.
week, and it was the lifeguard that saw it, even though mom and dad were 4 feet away.
Right.
And it is just to Jay Nice's point, policy is just paper. Speed limits are suggestions.
Yeah.
I rely on the human behind the wheel to go 25 plus or minus 5 miles when they're driving down my street. That it is the state can do its best to create the infrastructure. And yes, it's on us to modernize, evaluate, make
Mhm.
redundant, make improvements, do all those things,
Yeah.
not take advantage of. Be respectful when it's time to move somebody on. But it's humans that are in charge of keeping each
Mhm.
other safe. It is not the state that requires it. Now, like the UDHR and CRC and the Constitution, Declaration, all of those kinds of things are just frameworks for humans to operate within.
And we're seeing that we're living that right now. All of these things that we thought were like hard and fast rules, they're really just suggestions. Does the presidential candidate have to provide their tax returns? Do we have to can you sell watches if you're the president of the United States on
Cologne,
this helmet?
how much
Can you
you
s I mean,
how much
like, these
cologne?
things
I
that
wouldn't the
we
cologne
thought of as rules are really just
suggestion
agreements. They're
or
what's a gentleman's
or
handshake.
social contracts.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
so as they go out the window.
my social contract is
Mhm,
that I'm assuming is that you're not going 90 miles an hour down a 25-mile road, but if you wanna get on 90 on 95 and hit, like, 85 miles an hour, like, I'll stay in the right lane, go, pass me. That's my social contract, and everything that I feel like is happening with the Republican Party and how they're, just like just the right, just like them, is that all the social contracts that I thought went without saying have been broken
yeah.
or feel so tissue papery, like flimsy.
Well, and I'll rephrase that a little bit. All of this stuff is always up for negotiation.
Mhm.
Life is a big negotiation. I think your comment you just made focused on the outcome. But what we're really sad about is the undergirding belief systems and values.
Correct.
I didn't think we had to argue about school children getting lunch. Like, it's literally heartbreaking to think that somebody would like a group of people would gather together
Right.
to make sure we stopped giving school children lunch. And I think that where we are now is a little bit of the heartbreak of realizing that we don't have the same values.
And
We
this is
don't
where
share the same
but
we're
this is
not on
where
the
you
same
and I
team.
disagree, is I
Mhm.
actually think they do. I think their ego is in the way. Remember over the years, I've been like, I think everyone tries to save a drowning child, and you said you didn't.
I don't. I still don't. And you know
And
how I know that? We're throwing people in the back of vans.
right.
That I don't think that's true. That it like I have more evidence than you do. Recent evidence. That's not how we are. I think we save our children. We see children that look like us. We save children that go to our schools and live in our neighborhoods. I don't think we save drowning children. And I think I didn't want that to be as true as it has been revealed to me to be true, right? I'm a naturalized citizen. My father was in the military and that's how that's how we became citizens through my father's military service. The number of people that have called me so worried. "Denise, are you okay? Are you in danger? Are you worried about, traveling? Are you" the number of people that have called me because we have a group of people that think it's okay to terrorize people that are just law-abiding, normal people if they are not born in this country. So I think that what I don't even use, like, labels like Republican, Democrat, right, I think I've, like, moved even a little bit above that to kind of say, like, it is literally heartbreaking to think that people will stand by and watch this level of harm and not speak up, and even not speak up, cheer for it. That's how I felt watching Elon Musk on that stage with a chainsaw. I was like, what is happy about this? What is happy about this? You really think the lady that works at the post office and the dude that's a park ranger and the guy that worked at the CDC, these people were less leeches and mooches and terrible people that need to be like, how did these everyday people that make what 60, 50, $80,000 a year, how did they become your enemy? And like that, it was amazing to watch. I'm like, these people are you. But just by labeling them and putting them in the other camp, in the terror camp, these are the horrible people that must be stopped. People turned on their next door neighbors like,
Well, and they
"What?"
did and
And we always say during the Holocaust, "It wouldn't have been me. I would have hit Anne Frank." But we're not hiding Anne Frank. We're turning Anne Frank in every single day. So I think this idea, I think the ill ease that we all feel and that like where the point of actual negotiation is now is what is it that we actually believe? If we're having a negotiation about policy, what are the values that drive that policy, right? What are the things that we need to consider? What's important here, right? And if we don't agree on those things, then who are we and what do we
well,
have? I don't
and that I think that's, like, the hair that I'm so eager to split is correct. Everyone is like particularly World War II. I don't know why it's World War well, I know it's why World War II because there's required state standards that we all have to understand what happened in World War II, and there is, though all we have had a lot of discussion around the lack of certain facts being included in that particular part of the curriculum. And what we're mentioning is the 45 million people that died during World War II, not oftentimes, and I'm saying this as an American Jew, that it's a reference that 6 million Jews were killed, during the Holocaust. It doesn't account for the other 50% of people that were also exterminated. Um, I believe that humans have the capacity to embody characteristics, behaviors on that entire spectrum, like the Mother Teresa to the Hitler. And it's our job as humans to keep everyone in the Mother Teresa space. Now, sometimes, like, if someone says something rude to my kid or, like, I fluctuate, but I like to think that I stay on this side of the line. I also know that I think I have the capacity to do awful things. If I think about, like, if somebody were to ever hurt one of my kids,
sure.
when I think about some of our world leaders, like, I have visions of, like, doing horrible things to them. Um,
Right.
and so I I I have I believe that the better angels of our nature are possible to uncover and lift.
I think that's true. I think that's true. I just don't think that's what happens. I think it's
Maybe it's
true.
not what I
I think it
because of the
happens
system, because of the chessboard that we're on.
because of the chessboard that we on, because we worship money,
Yes.
and we have made
Yes.
money a
And
proxy for
power.
judgment
Yes.
and power, authority, leadership. It's not. You just have a lot of money. Doesn't mean you're a good
Correct.
person. Doesn't mean that you care about anyone, whatever. So I think that is a spoiler. I think that we are awash with apathy and
Yep.
disconnection. We are, we know everything that happened on Love Island. but really don't have a clue about what's going on with our neighbor, right? Like, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. We're kind of just, we're tapped out. We're tapped out. So, the famous quote, all that is required for evil to flourish, for good people to do nothing. There's a lot of good people that do
Simple.
nothing. So, on that continuum, there's like all of these people that in their heads, they may be at the kind end, but in their lives, in their actions, in their activities, not so much, you know? I mean, I look at Donald Trump and I think, how how? To this day, I'm like, "What?" Like,
I
to
just
me,
find
like,
how
he
sweet
stood on
she is when she's like, "What?" I'm like,
I
"What,
can't,
Denise?"
he stood on the stage and he said, "They're eating the cats and dogs." Like, you're saying something that you know is not true, and, like, no matter what he does, nobody cares. They still said, "Here's the keys to the kingdom." And then planes start falling out the sky, and then like, it's just crisis after crisis after crisis, failure of leadership. I mean, today, the Epstein files clearly no longer exist now, and are people gonna really be upset? I mean, they're gonna say they're upset for a couple days, and then they're on to the next thing.
Okay.
Like, the lies don't matter at all. So, as much as I think, yes, there's, like, people who are good and kind and whatever, they are okay with the people at the far end, if
Well, if they
of
don't
that
look at them, they
continuum
don't look at them, they
continuum.
don't see them. It's like, and you use the example of the deportation of children. I was talking about Elian Gonzalez. Do you remember who he was in
Yes.
in year 2000
Yes.
maybe? 2001?
Mhm.
5-year-old Cuban little boy who survived, fleeing Cuba, landed in Miami. I believe his mother died at sea, and his father, who was still in Cuba, didn't agree to his their fleeing, and he insisted that he come back. And Miami, the city came to a screeching halt when I must have been some version of ICE, went into his aunt and uncle, grandparents' home and took out this 5-year-old boy and deported him back to Cuba. It was headline news for a month all around the country. That happens every single day. Now, to my point of the better angels of our future, of our nature, I do the content of people being rounded up, I do see individuals, nameless individuals, trying to get in the way, trying to stop,
Yeah.
videotape the whole.
And
I'm, like, so excited about the
100%.
glitter movement where you're dumping glitter on all the ICE officials so you can figure out who they are the next day. Like, I am seeing, but I recognize that the system is still too much for the angels of ourselves to get in the way of it.
Yeah, and while I'm very much, acknowledging that I see that, I also see people cheering. I also see people who call themselves dire like, supporters of the Constitution, championing the idea that we don't need due process.
Right.
Right? Like, there's a erosion of the values, even previously espoused values. People who hate the deficit just voted for, what is it, a $5 trillion increase? I don't like, there's no consistency of value and of logic around what it is you say you want to have, right? And I have my thoughts as to why that is, but I think that's the problem. The problem is not, we need more people standing in the streets and fighting, stopping the abductions, literally. It's We need people who are cheering for it to stop cheering. We need the people who are respected. Even protesting, I have to tell you, I've been watching protesting and just being like, does this even in this day and age, does this even work? And this is why I'm thinking that, because it's literally everything feels so algorithmic. It feels so, like, I feel like we're post-truth sometimes. So, this idea of, like, how do you move a new needle, right? Like, this is a different space. This beast eats our horror, eats our outrage. It just feeds the algorithm and they make more money and we're just fodder for jokes and whatever, whatever, because we're pumping up the topics in such a way that it doesn't. I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, what is the new set of tools? I don't know what they
Okay,
are.
I
I
have
don't know what
one
they
I
I
have
don't know
one
what they
answer
are.
for you, and it's so
Good.
annoying. The only antidote to the beast or the machine that eats our rage, gets bigger and fired up from our rage, only antidote to it is some version of love. Like, it's some
Mhm.
version of what I hope you and I sometimes are able to do publicly is demonstrate nuance and curiosity and humility and concern for people on all sides. Um, that you and I stay committed to believing that there are people who are willing to drive plus or minus 5 around the speed limit. That if people are given and frank, that they do hide them in the basement. I mean, this is but I don't know if this is me in, like, my privileged room being able to say, "No, I promise, I promise, I promise," because my neighbors in this very purple and mostly red part of this county will watch me on air and be like, "Jenny, you do not believe what you say on air." And then our generator fails. They're at my generator pouring gasoline in it before I am. And, like, that's where I'm like, "Oh god, I think we're gonna be okay." But, like, Master Liberty, to your point about Ben Franklin and when I say we are okay, I don't know if it happens in my lifetime, and I don't know what okay actually looks like. I think we are of I think
Fair
we
enough.
are of the time where we are gonna have to do some more understanding of each other, backgrounds, concerns,
Mhm.
and then there'll be a little bit, and we're gonna have to challenge each other's stories in ways that are gonna be bloody for decades, decades.
Yeah.
Until someone decides like, "Oh, that's not the myth. I'm not gonna let this be oh, this was God's plan to wipe this camp off the riverbank." I'm not picking that up, folks. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
And the way I think the struggle is that we've got to figure out where and how amplify actual people when we are overrun with AI slop. We are being bombarded with false messages, bots and deep fakes, when we are numb with consumerism and materialism. Um, there's a trigger, anybody listening, and I know you feel like this, and I know I feel like this. It's like we have to go a little more analog as we have this conversation. This is the analog meets digital of real people talking. Digital things are tools. They're not replacement for work. They're not replacement for human connection. They're not replacement for actual conversations, And so just watching how a topic just loses you used the word earlier, flattened. Everything gets flattened into sound bites and retweets. And it's like, how do we get to remember, like, these are real people? And one of the wonderful things about this, there's a very few silver linings to this horrible tragedy as hit Texas, is that, people are paying attention. People do care. And, unfortunately, I wish it didn't have to take, sweet little blonde, blue-eyed children for people to care. But that is, in fact, sometimes what makes people care. And if it gets the safety measures done, I'm grateful. I just wish we did that for everyone. I wish we did that more consistently, but I take that W, right? Of getting things fixed and repaired. Um, I think you're right. Love, community is the only way out. That's it. There's no other answer. One of the challenges that we have now is are we in segregated communities? Are we actually in community? Community is not the people that live on the left and the right of you. Community is bigger than that. And do we have the commitment and the energy around kind of broadening out sense of community so that our solutions are
Well,
better and they're more constructive?
and they're more, like, nuanced because, I mean, Master Liberty, I see your point about what Ben Franklin said about the republic, and, like, he was very clear a two-party nation will not is not sustainable. George Washington said the same exact thing in his when he stepped down after they asked him to run for a 3rd term and he wouldn't. And I don't think, when you're in a post-natural disaster state, laws and rules don't apply or exist and people still keep each other alive. Like, I'll still drive. I don't know. How many times do I look at an actual speed limit on a daily basis? I don't. I know I know when I'm in this neighborhood that this is the amount that I should go, and when I'm on this highway, this is broadly the amount that I should go. And that's not because I'm checking the laws. Like, I don't think laws are the reason why humanity has survived. I don't. I think it's because if I go back to Darwin, and Darwin has been entirely hijacked by capitalism, which suggested that survival of the fittest, which he only mentioned twice, but he mentioned like love and compassion, community and caretaking like hundreds and hundreds of times is the only reason why species survive. And so I think if we hide behind rules and laws and regulations and like we're like playing false games, I appreciate those things. I want to make sure that there's healthy ingredients and laws around schools and things like that are those things are really important to me. I will pay taxes so that I can go to the emergency room and get stitches if needed. Um, but my fear, Denise, is like when I think about Epstein files and I'm like very intrigued. And I think ultimately, what's it called? The thing is going to come around to roost or something like that. Like, I actually think if I understand this correct, Musk, Laura Loomer, and Alex Jones are furious,
Yeah.
furious. And I am wondering, like, I I have no problem calling myself and other people out on, you know, our bullshit. I get really excited when I see more people that might have been willing to bend the knee to Trump starting to call it all out. And like, I don't know. I mean, are they literally gonna select all
What are they gonna do?
Epstein with all these things? What I don't know, but
I think that's what I've come to with Trump. I literally don't think anything he does matters. I don't think I think he's essentially lame duck, right? I think he does what he wants to do. He's not a responsive leader. So the fact that they're all pissed off means what exactly? What's gonna happen because they're pissed off? News cycle?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's right. I don't think it's gonna be like, "Okay, fine, guys, here it is." I
Right.
don't know. I don't know, but because I guess I was always, under the assumption, again, this was, like, pre-Trump ever showing up on anyone's radar, that, like, if you say you're gonna do something, you do it.
Yeah. He doesn't
He
do
never
that.
does.
He's not he never
He never does.
does.
Like,
So
and that
that's the thing. I think
makes
this is
that
the
leadership
interesting.
to do that. So if they're breaking from it, my fear is that they go and find somebody that much more extreme.
My evolution on this is that we need to release stories that don't serve us. We have a bunch of
You feel
stories that
that way
don't
about
serve
the
us.
Epstein files?
I don't think I feel that way about Trump. I don't think he cares at all what you and I
Correct.
think. I don't think he cares at all what like, they can be as mad as they wanna be. So what? What are they gonna do? Where are they going? What's the alternative? Like, I don't think Trump is trying to run again. I don't think he's trying to like, what does he need from
Well,
them that he hasn't already
I know.
gotten? He made what, how many what, $1 billion a month? And since the presidency? Like, we
Well,
are
right now
bugged.
he wants that Nobel.
Or he wants a distraction from a news cycle. I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like this is a distraction from the fact that this horrible bill has been passed and people are starting to dissect it. I just think it's noise. And I don't think he cares.
Do you care? Like,
I don't
I
think he cares. And I think we are thinking I talk to so many people that think you can shame
Mhm.
him. We can shame Lisa Murkowski, or, like, we can shame them. We
You
could
used to be able to, though. That goes back to your civil
you
disobedience.
cannot. You cannot. Like, that's not the game that's on the field. I've been really trying to be a little bit
Mhm.
quieter and to try to see what is the game on the field. What are we playing? Are we playing Jenga? Are we playing Mancala? Spades? What's the game on the field? And I feel like we all keep playing the same old
Correct.
games. Even like I love the conversation about the Constitution. The Constitution, they literally decided, hey, no due process. And everybody just said, okay. They literally have built a whole military in with ICE. They don't have to identify themselves, that wear masks, that go around in unmarked vehicles. They're picking up people off the streets and don't even have like a public record of who they picked up and where they are. They could pick somebody up and they're missing for days. Then you try to find them and they're in a foreign country. What are you talking about,
Right.
Constitution? They don't care about this. So we are having all of these wonderful intellectual conversations that don't matter at all. They don't matter at
Okay.
all.
What do
And
you
so to
what
me, unless you are an attorney and you're working and you're like, because I do think the courts these things will work through the courts. But I guess what I'm been trying to do for me, and this is really hard for me. I'm not saying this like it's easy. It's very, very hard for me. What is the actual reality? Radical candor. What is the actual reality of the situation that we are in? And what is it going to take to get us out of it? Um, and I'm not loving the answers that I'm getting when I go to exercise. I'm not loving them, but I think that we think that we can nice or we can logic out some of these things, and I just don't think that's the truth. You know, and, the question is it's gonna come down to, like, what are you willing to do? Are we willing to have our country be changed this drastically? And so far, yeah, and it's gonna require an animation. And I don't know, like, I tend to believe it's like the straw that broke the camel's back, like, he's gonna have to do enough things, and I keep hoping that this is gonna be the thing that changes the tide, or this is gonna be the thing that lights people up and makes them, pay attention. This and he keeps doing thing after thing after thing, and I'm not
Yeah,
seeing that
yeah.
shift. But I want to, I hope I do.
I think it's gonna have to be like the Alex Joneses of the world. I think it's gonna have to be the Laura Lormers.
Yeah. I don't think it's nice.
No, it's like I always said, I'm like, the NRA has me comfortably calculated, compartmentalized. They don't care. They do not care what I have to say. I do I do think I a little bit, disagree with Jay Nice at some point where, like, shame isn't a very effective way for being
Oh, no, I'm about shame. I love shame. And master liberty, please say what you mean. It has been this way for a long time. People are only see now. What do you mean? What has
I
been this
think
way
there's
for long
different
for a long
and
time? But
problems,
go
the
ahead.
inefficiencies, and I don't know, Master Liberty specifically respond to whether or not, like, the Constitution ever really carried weight. I always thought it did, but, like, SCOTUS, like, it's certainly not right now. We're not, like, riding,
I
living
don't
and
know.
breathing by it, but I actually do think shame has some currency in it. I think the response to shame is often very violent and, like, ego salvaging to begin with, but I do think it can push people into different places. Um, I don't.
Oh, as a Catholic, I disagree. Huh. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I think you should be ashamed to sell sneakers and cologne and like a I think there should be some shame here. I think profiting off of the office, peddling wares, sundry items, I think should be is worthy of shame. And and I'm always surprised by people that gloss over this behavior. I think how silly are we, Jenna? Al Franken was literally run out of office for an old picture. Girl,
I was just thinking about that. I was just thinking about that, like, can he just, like, step down? Like, Gillibrand was like, "You need to go," and he was just like, "Okay."
I don't know.
I know, I
I don't
know.
know.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, I have to tell you, like, I have found myself since November 6th, 2024, being more of an asshole to the system. Things like,
Mm,
if I have to return something where I would normally be like, "You know what? This got worn a little bit too much." Now I'm like, "Oh, fuck you. I'm gonna return it because if they don't care, why should I?" Like, there's this sense of, like, you don't play by my values, and, like, I'm embarrassed that I have been because I thought Dorn like, I've been playing by the rules that we all agreed to, but maybe fuck it, I'm just gonna go 90 miles an hour because my car can go that fast. Like, just this, like, there's this sense of,
you're being a mark or a dope. You're the only one following the
yeah,
rules.
and, like, shame on because
Yeah.
I thought we
And I
were
think
all in
this is
this
very
together.
I think this is very complicated. This conversation, this is like a post-grad, post-doc level conversation because, we really, really love naivete. We love it. We love to be innocent, and I didn't know, and I can't believe, and why would they do we really love it, and it's not serving us. It's not
Yeah,
serving
like,
us, right? Like, you can't be the only one playing by the rules, but at the same time, you don't wanna violate your values and your, code for yourself. So, where's that thin, narrow line between that, right? Is like the reality is there's a new set of rules afoot, and are you following them, or are you, like, in some nostalgic place of when this how you used to operate used to work, right? The tools that we're using, they don't work anymore. And so what are we going to do about that, right? And how do we need to change? We're very clear on how everybody else needs to change. But how do I need to change? Right? If I like, what's the saying? Like, "Fool me once, shame on you, but feel me twice, shame
correct.
on me." There's a point where I have to
I feel like
say,
I'm on a
"Wait a
shamey
minute."
27th.
And like, it's like, talk about the old references. It's Lucy and Charlie Brown. I mean, Lucy keeps holding the football and Charlie Brown keeps trying to kick it. She pulls it back every single time. So there's a point where, yes, it's really cruel and mean that Lucy keeps pulling back the ball. But Also, Charlie, stop trusting Lucy to hold the ball for you. Get somebody else to hold the ball for you. Get your own
Right.
ball. Change it. Like you have
Right.
to change it up. And so we're very comfortable kind of saying, can you believe what they're doing? Can you believe how bad this is? And it's like, well, wait a minute. What am I allowing? What am I putting up with? What am I condoning? What am I so tapped out that I'm not noticing? What am I not paying attention to? Like I think this is a space of this journey that I'm in is what do I have the
Right.
power to change that I haven't changed? Right. And that may mean a harder edge, right? That may mean some sharper
Mhm.
elbows, right? And we're not always comfortable with that. And that's just the truth. I love logic. I want to sit and show you the studies and the statistics. And I want to tell you, can I give you some stories of lovely people who have benefited from this? Like I want to persuade you, right? I want to persuade you. And I'm talking to people that they don't care if they persuade me. They just want to beat
Correct.
me. So, how do I need to change in response to that?
I mean, I'm doing it in like I'm like sticking it to the man in like the dumbest places. Like true like like, "Oh, you know what? We actually didn't end up using this Halloween costume. Here you go, Bezos. I'm sending it back to Apple." You know what I mean? And, like, I don't know if it's like a small individual shop owner that like, there's this like, "I'm just gonna turn away. I don't care anymore." Or like
Yeah.
First off, I do wanna just quickly do a room reset. I This is Denise Hamilton. She is one of the wisest voices of our time. She's the author of Indivisible because I think she, more than most other folks I know, might have some out of the box ideas on how we can come back together, but I'm very afraid she's gonna be like, "I have none." I also, so you who are following on Instagram Live, feel free to post questions and I will bring them in. Denise and I are, Denise is only looking at the Twitch chat and not the Instagram live questions, but I will bring those up.
Mm,
If I will bring those up. So feel free to
amazing.
participate. Um, yeah. So my like sticking it to the man is like cheap. It's like cheap stuff, like returning the thing to Walmart. One of my well, I actually I'm realizing I probably won't share the story, but I have a healthcare provider who used to help me, but I live in Pennsylvania and they live in New York City. And they were finally like, you need to come back to New York City for me to see you face to face. I can't do some virtual care of you. And um and I'm like, are you kidding? Like the entire country is like melting down and not following rules and like you're worried about your one license not seeing me because I'm in Pennsylvania. Like I'm not even in like, Australia doing something, I'm like just like 120 minutes from New York City. And it's like there are some people who are just gonna stick to those, but I do think we need those folks to anchor us. But like you, Denise, like I have no problem with sharper elbows. But what I'm
Mhm.
finding, like I have no problem sharpening my own elbows, but what I'm finding is like I was on Newsmax a couple days ago. Oh, what were we talking about? Oh, I can't remember what the subject was. Um, oh, Mamdani, the mayor. And of New York
Mhm.
City, and they said, "Well, the Muslim socialist," and I said, "You can just call him a socialist. Muslim isn't part of his identity as or Muslim isn't why he's running for mayor." Like, "Oh, well, he's the one who keeps bringing it up." I'm like, "No, he's made it a part of his identity.
Yeah.
You've politicized it." And
Yeah.
and then they came back with something else of like, "Well, it's about the radical class of people who now hate white people." I won't make me white people. And so what I'm finding is happening with my sharper elbows is that as I'm moving closer to them, they're moving even further into the like, I'm just gonna be anti-woke, anti-radical, and now anti-white man. Whereas like, okay, are we sure about
Anything.
that? You guys, I'm talking about them so badly. Please wait. I have to be right back. I will be right back.
She's making a run for it. Let's hope that she has no storm problems that are outside. And wait, somebody said something. Oh, Master Liberty, you said something interesting to me. You said, if the society has no shame, then cultural decay has already happened, or desensitization of some kind has impacted a generation so greatly that the morals of the society no longer hold weight. I think, I would kind of pull back on that kind of dichotomy. I'm more
Okay, wait,
inclined to
what did
think
you
of
say?
this
What did you
as
say about the
a
white men thing?
negotiation. I was reading I was responding to
Okay.
Master Liberty. He made or she made a statement about, the morals of society no longer hold weight, and I think it's just a renegotiation. That's how I think about it. I don't think about it as somebody's winning, somebody we're all gonna die. This is all gonna fall apart. I don't think about it that way. The way I think about it is all of these things are always subject to renegotiation.
Okay.
And so there's some things that we have to go back to the table with and decide how we're going to move forward. And we're in a time of negotiation, right? There was a time that was considered completely appropriate for very small children to work in the munitions factory, putting their hands in bombs. Literally, like there was a time that was perfectly appropriate. And over time we kind of came together and said, we're not going to have children working in the factories, right? And so that is a choice that we made. And now we've made new choices. Florida, Alabama have just passed laws that says it's okay for kids to work all night in the meat packing factory. Did we agree on? Is that a movement that we've made? Right? Like, I think that we don't understand that we are always at the table renegotiating things that decisions and policies that we're doing. And so I think what we're getting that this is the optimist in me, right? What we have to do is bring everybody back to the table. And I think social media, 24-hour news cycle, constant punditry, constant exposure to everyone's take on a problem as opposed to sitting down and really hashing out that problem is 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 a confounding factor to us getting to that negotiation to say, how many people really don't want kids to have school lunch? Is that 90%? Is that 50%? Is that we don't have any idea because we're interacting with avatars. We're interacting with proxies, right? It's Joe Rogan that tells us what people believe, or it's, Alex Jones, or it's, Laura Loomer. Are they really representative? I don't know. You don't know. How do we get to a point that we're having actual conversations with actual people that are subject to the policies and the decisions that we're making? And I think that's harder than ever in a digital atmosphere because we are engaging with people who are literally made richer by our division. The more we argue, the more money they make. So they're pumping the worst takes at us all day, every day. And so how do we sift through all of that and get to good policy? And that's the challenge of our time. I don't think it's hopeless. I do think it's really incredibly difficult. Is the notion more based on the object of my yes or no? It's good. I think yes, another question. Um, the negotiation on school lunches, is negotiation moral or based on the object of why yes or no school lunches? And Jay Nice said, how are those different? And I think I'm with her. I think I'm with Jay Nice. Like, listen,
Yeah.
what do we like? I think that we've gotten so esoteric and so philosophical, and I'm just like, I want the babies to have lunch at school. I don't want you to be sitting in school all day and
Right. If
hungry.
you need
That's
some
how I
data,
feel
here's
about
some
it. How I
data,
feel
here's
about
some
it.
data around why we have a best stomach to eat. But you also know that calories are important to get through a day.
I think that I think that we've gotten to a space where we don't seek consensus. There's more value, more currency in disagreement. It's why I don't do a lot of TV, because I get on TV and I'm very, like, reasonable and middle of the road. And I literally have had producers tell me, "You need to be more combative. You need to be more fiery." And I'm like, "Do we need more fiery? Is that what we need? Are we sure about that?" Right? So I think this, like, resisting the call of the wild, right? Like, resisting the siren song that says, "Fight, battle, tackle, challenge, da da da." It's like, wait a minute. Do we all think that children, if they're sitting in the school, they should have some lunch? Who doesn't agree with that? Tell me why. Let's talk about it and let's get to a. I don't think we can do that anymore. I think that's
Well, I
become so incredibly difficult, and that's the work. How do we create those spaces to have those
so
conversations?
I have 2 thoughts. Uh, one is my fear is that some folks might not be interested in having the conversation about the school lunch because
Mhm,
it ultimately comes down to more money that makes things more inconvenient for them, right? Like if we
mhm,
go back to Texas, the flood warning system, and we're all going to be like experts on flash flood warning systems pretty soon.
before it's all said
But
and
by but
done.
by like 5 o'clock tonight, I was like, "Oh, there is a system that can go inside the river that you can see when the speed and the water gets up, and they didn't want to spend it, and da, da, da." It costs money. It's not just about, do we wanna put lunch on kids' stomachs? It's about, do they get grade D meat or do they get grade A meat? Oh my god, that's gonna cost you some money. And it's like going back to what you said about, I think you said it was immigrants who were like, "Everyone here thinks they're so invisible." We have no idea how good we have it or how much society is held together by a string. There is not a sewer system, a water system, an electrical grid that doesn't need improvements, and we've all just been born into it. There isn't a bridge that doesn't need some shoring up in. If you n I mean, I have crossed some bridges and I'm like, "Just hold your breath and roll down the window just in case." Like, we I think Americans are far too afraid of being inconvenienced, both with just, like, their physical space, but also when it comes to their pocketbook, that they don't want to engage in the conversation about school lunch because theoretically, they could all be like, "Of course, everyone should have school lunch." But the follow-up question is, are we giving them organic carrots or are we giving them like PB&J, Edamons, things that have been in the freezer that have not an ounce of nutrients in them? Oh, well, wait a second. Now you're getting 2 beggars can't be choosers, Jen.
Well, but the thing that's funny about that is, how do other countries figure it out? I think this is one of those places where we kind of act like we are cracking the code. If you are we the richest country on planet
No.
Earth? I don't
Mm.
understand, how do other countries figure it out? Have you ever seen one of those amazing deals on like compilation videos where they show like school lunch in countries all over the world? And it's like
Yes.
wonderful,
Yes.
like
Yes.
unbelievable. And it's like, well, these countries that don't have the wealth that we have
How
figured
the
out,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not about the lunch. It's about the, do you care about your people? You know what I always say? If you say you love America, you got to try to love Americans. And I think what the sadness that I have felt over the last few months has been, my God, we have a lot of people that don't love
Well,
Americans.
because, Denise, they don't love themselves.
Okay. I mean,
Why
okay,
then I talking about you?
like, I have just come to a space of, like, you wanna think, like, we are a nation of good people that care about one another and da da da, and I really have been challenged on that. Again, I I believe that our stories tell us who we are. They tell us who the good guy and the bad guy, or they tell who lives heavily ever after. And a lot of our stories aren't true. And the challenge that I'm doing for myself right now is, what story am I operating with that maybe aren't
I
true?
don't know. What are
And
they?
what
You've been asking
truth
yourself that for years now.
I do. I always challenge myself with that key question, because you can't be truly inclusive or truly tolerant of anybody else's ideas if you're not willing to, like, pull yours out and really polish them off and make sure they're true. Make sure they're right. Right? And so this idea that, well, everybody loves kids. I was at a seminar with a couple billionaires in the room, fancy schmancy seminar. And at one point, one of the billionaires in the room raises her hand and she says, "I just wish we could find something that we all agree on. Like, we all care about children." And the whole room, so 30 of us in the room, bust out laughing. And everybody in the room shouted out places and ways we don't care about children. And she literally busts into tears and she, like, left the room, because she in her mind, she really thought, well, everybody
Right.
loves children. And this room of strangers with no previous coordination was able to list 15 ways that we move every single day that says we don't really care about children. We don't, right? And so there's a mythology of where we are and who we are that I also think we need to
Okay.
release and start moving into radical candor about where we are, what we're doing, who we are, what we care about. And that's going to take movement. That's going to take, like, agitation, putting some stuff down, picking some stuff up, and moving from where we are today, right? The reality is, those people that voted against that alarm system, I don't think they're monsters. They're not monsters. They're not terrible, horrible, monstrous people that hate children. They just didn't care enough. There were two consequences: my pocketbook, potential, maybe loss of life. And when faced with those 2, yeah, I don't think it's really ever our values that are a problem, it's the competing
Or the
values
or the
that is the
myth
problem.
that there's the competing value.
No, I think there's always competing values. I think that you have a group that's like, "Hey, legacy, leaving money for my kids is the most important thing in the world. So that's why I'm gonna argue against this death tax." No way, because leaving legacy is an important value, and that value is more important than these living children today having school lunch. If I gotta choose, I choose my kids over your kids. You may have both values, you just prioritize one over another,
Right,
right?
but I
And
would
so
argue that
what
your child's safety, security in the future is in contradiction with.
but it doesn't mean you don't hold the other value. I think you can hold 2 values, you just one is just prioritized over the other. And we talk about it like people don't have them, and I think that gets us in trouble. What do you care about? What is worth making sacrifice for? What are the things that are non-negotiable? Is anything non-negotiable? Is everything up for discussion? Right? If it's me or you, it's always me. Like, and I'm trying to say these things in as neutral a way as possible to suggest that these are a true negotiation, not a guarantee. Slavery used to be legal. We put people in internment camps. We make negotiations back and forth throughout history all the time about what we think. What do we think today? What do we think today?
Alright, so let me ask you
And
a
can we
question,
talk to those terms?
because I
Yes.
am gonna wrap because I have to get on the road and drive to New York City, um,
In this weather?
in this weather. See, I'm invincible, I'm fine.
Oh my god. Okay.
So everyone else is gonna go the speed limit, I'll be fine. Um, If we were to hypothesize, like if you were to mull over what a space would look like where someone comes in and is like, I think the school lunches example is a great example. What what does that look like? Because for
Mhm.
me, it's like, okay, let's debate school lunches. And you have like one lobbying crew and another lobbying crew, and they go to the Hill and they debate with the policymakers. And then the data shows up about kids needing food or yeah. That like, how could we potentially host or hold those conversations in a place like this? Now, we're on Instagram Live, as I mentioned, which I don't think I told you, but we're on Instagram Live and it's just a bunch of comments. Here in Twitch, you see some people who have some interesting relationships with ideas that you and I, who knows what the Venn diagram is, but like, yes, it's like this is the kind of discourse that needs to be had. The
Mhm.
hypothesis is that if we get these kinds of conversations in more places, how would you curate a conversation about
Mhm.
a thing? And maybe school lunches doesn't become the thing, but maybe the death tax and putting more stop signs in, but, like, how would we even populate that conversation?
I mean, I think, and I've started kind of, surprise, surprise, I started kind of doing some of this. Um, I am desperate to get away from partisan constructs. I really want to talk about the problem, right? So, school lunch is a good example for me in that I believe that it is essential that we have a well educated population, right? I believe that education, you can't have a democracy without having a well educated population. So, what are the ingredients to creating a well educated, self sufficient population? Good teachers, good content, good nutrition. Like, to me, it is a key ingredient. Do we all agree about that? Like, that literally, that's how when I host these conversations, that's how I do it. Do we all agree about what I've said thus far? Okay, then we get to the next point. Is that ketchup, french fries, cheeseburgers, pizza? What do we think about that? Right? And just and build it brick by brick, as opposed to taking kind of what we have now and trying to manipulate it. I really like to go brick by brick of what is it that we believe about this? What is the
Do
because
we have
maybe
the
you
luxury
don't
to do
think.
that? Okay, so for example, I'm sitting here, I'm like, "Okay, I wanna populate this
Mhm.
conversation for Denise. I wanna watch her do this."
Yeah.
Obviously, I have a tremendous amount of faith and love for you and believe you could. But it's like, okay, who do I go get? That girl who started the Moms for Liberty school thing who, like, we don't have the luxury to be like, "Do we start at do we need school lunches?" I think we're already having to start at, "Let's talk about that book about 2 gay penguins."
Yeah, I actually don't agree. I think we do have time. We are spending countless hours on social media. We are watching incredible hours of television. So I actually think we do have time. And I think we have to take time, right? So for me, like I just hosted one of these conversations and it was a tough one. It was about what is the contract that we have with churches in the
Mean
United
that they paint
States?
the tax
What's the social
about
contract? So if you have a mega church that is pulling in $5 million a year, you're a business. Why should you be taxed? Why or why not? And or if you're not going to be taxed, should you have to divulge? Should you have to um list the ways that you service the community? Right? Fascinating conversation because like, do you first of all, do you agree that churches should not be taxed? Yes. Do you think somebody should be able to own a church? Not so much. Do you think that a church should be grossing millions of dollars and not paying taxes, not paying whatever? Because when the church doesn't pay tax and is sitting on 10 acres, that means that is tax revenue that that community is not getting. And so, like, we just went thing by thing by thing. And by the end of it, most people in the group, not everybody, believed, came to they this is the solution that was came what that was brought up was if you are a church grossing over a certain amount of revenue, you should have to share how you are servicing the community. And if you can't do that for a percentage of your revenue, you should not be tax exempt. That's a concrete policy that came out of this
Great.
discussion. Now, this is a group of people, right? Like this is a random group of people because that's the other thing. Um I think that I love a good solid expert, but I also think we an expert and a talking head are not the
Mhm.
same thing. And so I really like having people that have different pieces of the elephant in the room and then having the conversation. So I think, yeah, it takes a little bit of time,
Hearing.
but I just think it's better. I just think it's better. I think that what we're doing right now is yelling positions at each other and giving everybody statistics and giving everybody studies and really nobody cares. I think
No,
finding the
fact
spaces of
never care and never a fact never wins a war. Um, well, let me ask you a question, D. I mean, again, I'm like trying to we have shows about men, we have shows about American Identity, we have The Land of End, which is like me just stumbling through with my friends who are smarter than me, like all of these nuances. But like, would you, how, how could we find or identify a couple of problems and curate and then advertise and market and then go and big obviously all y'all who are listening, this is now transitioned into a little bit of a business conversation. But it's fine. We're building it real time. Um, could we think of 313 problems? And we're like, okay, let's put this together. Let's do this in the public Discord because what can happen is here you can then bring up somebody like Master Liberty who's like, let me actually tell you about what the Constitution says about flood warnings, of which
right.
there isn't. But what do you say? Did he jump in about the church taxes? You know what, Master Liberty, between
Yeah.
churches not taxing, country clubs not taxing, like it's just been
Right.
anyway. I think there's something to it. I mean, I'm open to the idea that we have time to start at the square one.
I think so. And I think the key is making the problem that you're talking about very small. It's not like it's like cash bail as a concept really isn't that big. It's a very small concept. Why should you and I do the same thing? You get to go home, but I don't get
You
to
mean
go.
because I have cash for bail?
Right. Does that feel good? Does that feel, you know what I mean? Like, take out all the politics, take all the take everything out of it. Does it feel fair to you? You and I go and we did the exact same thing. You get to go home, but I have to stay here. Sometimes you might have been the initiator. You might have been the one that this was your idea, but you get to go home and I have to stay here. Is there a better way to do this? And actually thinking about all of this deeper, not the tangled web that we already have, but just like breaking it down to the bare bones so that you can really make a decision about it. That's kind of how I think about it.
So interesting. I'm like a little intimidated about it by that just because like I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old that like really fight about stupid stuff. Who's holding the remote control? And I'm in a marriage and it's like, wait, are we trying to get to the resolution about what we're going to do about Thanksgiving? Or are there other layers to the thing? Like there's always so many other layers to it.
Well,
It's
but I think
kind
that
of
you
simplify it.
see you learn a lot about what your actual
Right,
values are,
right, right, right. And the
right? This
hypothesis is that we're
idea
trying to get back to that.
you take turns of going to this family member on this holiday and this family member. Why or why not? These are the decisions of life, like these, and they seem like, well, that's such a small thing because there's a forgive me, a masturbatory element of discussing things in this esoteric, super high, lofty way that never has any movement. And I guess I have a desperation to make things smaller. You explain to me why we should count ketchup as a vegetable. Would you do that for your child? Really? Because how there's a old quote, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I really think if we can figure out what are what are the points of true disagreement, right? Do you really think that because my mother is not smart, was not successful, works a really low paying job, do you think that means I shouldn't have the best quality education? Is that what we really believe? Because of somebody else's choice that I should have there's a certain experience that I am relegated to? And like it's interesting when you kind of talk about it in the ways it actually happens. I just hear so many other things coming out in those conversations. And it really helps us to get to that doesn't mean we always agree, but it gets to like, what is it? What is it? I thought, for example, perfect example, I was really stumped on why there was so much attention to stopping people from being able to get student loans and really like hard, like just like policies that were about access to student loans. And then I had a conversation with a group of people, and somebody in the conversation said, you know, I just think like it's just minorities that get these student loans, and that's why they're taking all of our jobs. And I was like, "Say more. So what stopped you from getting a student loan?" "Well, nothing, but I mean, I guess I could have gotten one, but let's stop there a second. Why didn't you get one if you wanted to have one?" Right? Like, and so we could stop and deconstruct kind of like what are the moving parts of what you believe instead of like just comparing the we spend a lot of time at the finish line. Like there's no process in our thought process. And so there's some things to be learned. People aren't crazy. There's something to be learned from everyone on every side of an issue. How do you have those conversations? Yes, and I see you, Master Liberty. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's an interesting posture. I think some people are legitimately worried about the price of education going up. And I think other people are worried that education is an equalizer and they don't actually desire equality. So I think there's a bunch of things in there. And that's what I like to pull all those things on the table and let's really talk about it. Let's really talk about So yes, Jenna, let's figure it out.
Y'all, I gotta drive. I love you. Master Liberty, thank you so much for showing up and continuing to stir the pot. We welcome all.
And Jay Nice. Jay Nice. Thank you so much.
Um,
Oh wow, 4 hypes. I
yeah.
love that.
Jana says her finger on all of the emojis super quick. Thank you to everyone who is on Instagram Live. And we'll find ways to integrate those comments a little bit. Thanks. I should have been clear. It's also happening right here. Okay. I will call you later. Thank you for coming. I still want to get back to Epstein. I still want to talk about Trump.
How can Ghislaine be the
What do
only
you mean?
person in jail? Are we really serious right now for a sex ring? Are we serious? Anyway, that's
That
another
cannot be
conversation.
probably another conversation. Okay, Denise Hamilton, a lot more from you. We love you. Thank you. Bye.